"My mother brought that bottle into my father's house," Darnell said, calm enough to frighten me. "Daddy is dead, Sabrina is in the hospital, and Mother knows more than she is saying." But he did not call me Mama. He called me Mother, like I was a stranger on trial. The handcuffs were colder than I expected. I had just stepped out of Mount Olive Baptist, my program inside my Bible, when Detective Lena Ortiz touched my elbow and said, "Mrs. Caldwell, we need you to come with us." The church steps went quiet. Somebody's phone lifted, then vanished when Pastor Brooks said, "Put that away. This is God's house." But shame does not care whose house it enters. My younger son Micah rushed down the steps. "Mama, what is this?" I wanted to answer him. I wanted to tell Talia not to cry. She stood in her lavender dress, one hand over her mouth, looking at me like the world had changed its rules. Then I saw Darnell. My firstborn stood near the patrol car in a charcoal suit I knew he had bought on credit. His face carried grief like a bad actor wearing a crown. When our eyes met, he looked away first. That was when something inside me stopped begging. I was 63, a retired hospital administrator who had spent 32 years keeping paperwork from ruining lives. I knew signatures, insurance forms, bank statements, and the small print men hide behind. I was not frail. My knee ached when rain rolled in from the Gulf, but my mind was clear. I kept my house clean. I paid bills before the due date. I sang alto in the choir. I brought casserole to grieving families and candy for restless children. And still, people who had eaten from my kitchen looked at me as if murder had been sitting beside them in the pew. Detective Ortiz read words I could barely hold. Poison, investigation, Rayford Caldwell, Sabrina Cole Caldwell, bottle of whiskey, Ray. My ex-husband had been dead less than a day, and suspicion climbed into my lap before grief could breathe. Micah stepped forward. She didn't do this. Darnell spoke softly, just loud enough for the crowd. "Micah, don't make this worse. Let the police do their job." There it was. Not panic, not confusion, control. The officer guided me toward the car. Talia broke loose, but Micah caught her. "Nana Etta!" she cried. I turned as far as the cuffs allowed. "Baby, look at me." "You remember what I taught you," I said. "A lie can run fast, but it cannot stand long." Darnell's jaw tightened. Good. The son I had nursed through fevers and prayed over during hurricanes had just helped put me in the back of a police car. As the door closed, I understood one thing with a clarity that did not tremble. My enemy had my eyes. Rayford Caldwell never had to raise his voice to ruin a room. He could walk into a backyard barbecue smelling like cedar soap and whiskey, and within 10 minutes, somebody's auntie would be laughing too loud. He knew old soul songs by heart. He held a woman's hand like he had invented tenderness. That was the Ray everybody loved. The Ray I married was more complicated. He loved Saturday ribs, Al Green records, and staying out 2 hours late. He loved apologies, too, with flowers from Publix and a smile that begged me not to be so serious. Bills made him tired. Rules made him restless. Responsibility, to Ray, was what a woman mentioned when she had forgotten how to enjoy life. I worked at St. Mary's Medical Center, managing patient files, insurance forms, and scared families. Then I came home and managed our house, too. Mortgage, lights, groceries, school uniforms, lunch money, car insurance. The kind of things children never notice unless they disappear. Ray noticed none of it. If I told Darnell to be home before midnight, Ray would wink and say, "Let the boy breathe, Etta May." If I asked where the missing $200 went, Ray would sigh like I had accused him of treason. "You always gotta control everything," he would say. "No, Ray, I had to hold everything because you kept dropping it." Darnell adored him. His daddy let him sit behind the wheel in empty parking lots. His daddy played music so loud the windows shook. His daddy called him my man before he understood what manhood cost. Micah saw a different house. He saw me at 5 a.m, turning grits and signing a field trip form. He saw me stretch chicken thighs into 2 dinners. He saw me count money at night like prayer beads. Darnell remembered freedom. Micah remembered who paid for it. By the time Ray's affair with Sabrina Cole became something even church ladies stopped pretending not to know, my heart had already packed its bags. The court papers only made it official. Sabrina was younger than me, a home health aide with soft eyes. I did not hate her the way people expected. A woman does not steal a husband who is already standing outside the door. When Ray married her, folks watched my face for collapse. I gave them nothing. I wore navy to church that Sunday. I sang every verse. I shook hands after service. I went home and made collard greens because grief still has to eat. But Darnell saw only one thing. In his mind, I was the hard woman who drove his father away. Ray left the marriage, but he did not leave my house empty. He left his laughter in Darnell's ears, his excuses in his mouth, and his contempt for my discipline at my table like an unpaid bill. He left a son who mistook destruction for love. Darnell used to tell people I never let him breathe. He said it with a little laugh, the way grown children dress old resentment in humor so nobody notices the knife. "Mama ran that house like the Navy," he would say, and folks would chuckle because they did not know what I knew. They did not know Darnell hated any rule that arrived before his desire. Curfew insulted him. Chores embarrassed him. A locked savings account felt like betrayal. If I asked where he was going, he heard, "You are not a man." Micah heard something different. Micah heard, "Call me when you get there." He heard, "Take a jacket." He heard, "No, we are not buying shoes we cannot pay for." He did not always like it. Let me not turn my youngest into a saint. Micah had his seasons too. He slammed doors. He said I cared more about order than feelings. Once, when he was 22, he told me my strictness had pushed Darnell toward Ray. That one stayed with me. Not because it was true, because part of me feared it might be. A mother can survive many insults, but the idea that her love became the hand that shoved her child away is a hard thing to sleep beside. Years softened Micah. Working hospital logistics showed him what chaos costs. A missing shipment, a late invoice, One careless signature, and somebody else pays the price. He began calling me on Sunday nights, asking whether I needed anything from Costco, whether my knee was acting up, whether the porch light still flickered. Darnell called when trouble found him. The first time I helped, it was not much in his eyes. To me, it was enough to feel in my chest. I covered a past-due vendor payment for his laundry business because he said the machines would be shut down. 2 weeks later, a woman from church showed me a picture online. Darnell stood beside Vanessa Price in front of a rented black Mercedes, wearing sunglasses like he had stepped out of a magazine. The caption said, "Building an empire with my queen." My money had not saved a machine. It had bought an image. When I confronted him, he said, "You don't understand branding." I said, "I understand lying." From then on, something between us hardened. Not all at once. Hard things rarely announce themselves. They gather quietly. Still, I loved him. That is the part people do not understand. Love does not vanish because respect has been damaged. It lingers. It washes dishes after the argument. It leaves porch lights on. It keeps birthday cards in a drawer unsigned because pride and grief are wrestling in the same hand. And then there was Talia. My granddaughter had Darnell's eyes before bitterness moved into them. She liked strawberry pancakes, purple barrettes, and asking questions that made adults tell the truth by accident. "Nana Etta," she asked me once, "why does Daddy get mad when you say no?" I told her, "Because some people hear no as rejection, baby, but sometimes no is offense around something precious." She thought about that. Like keeping the dog out of the street? Exactly like that. I did not know then how badly I would need that fence. I only knew I had one son who saw me as the jailer, one son who saw me as the wall holding the roof up, and one little girl who still believed family meant safety. I wanted to keep that belief alive in her as long as I could. Blue Palms Laundry sat between a tax prep office and a discount nail place in an old strip mall off Colonial Drive. The sign still had a palm tree on it, though half the neon had died 3 summers earlier. At night, it looked less like blue palms and more like blue pains, which was closer to the truth. Darnell used to say, owning a business meant nobody could look down on him. But a business can humble a man faster than any boss. He had 11 washers, and 3 of them shook like they were trying to escape the building. The dryers ate quarters, ran hot, then quit cold. The folding tables had scratches deep enough to hold dust. His wash and fold price list had been changed so many times with black marker that it looked like an argument on cardboard. Customers complained about missing socks, late pickup, damp towels, and the smell near the back drain. One woman wrote on Yelp, "Nice owner, but this place is tired." That review wounded Darnell more than the 1-star rating. Tired was a word a man heard when he already feared it might be true. The rent was nearly 8 weeks behind. His soap supplier wanted cash on delivery. Every morning, before the first customer dropped a laundry bag on the counter, a merchant cash advance company pulled money from his account, like a hand reaching into his pocket while he slept. Still, Darnell dressed like success might be watching. Pressed shirt, polished shoes, gold watch he could not afford. Then came Vanessa Price. She did enter rooms, she arrived in them. Vanessa had honey brown skin, straight black hair cut sharp at her shoulders, and perfume that made people turn before they saw her face. She had worked at a high-end salon near Dr. Phillips until, depending on who told the story, she either walked away from jealous women or left after a fight over commissions and client lists. Vanessa told it like betrayal. Darnell believed every word. She would sit in the back office of Blue Palms, legs crossed, scrolling through photos of velvet chairs, cream walls, gold mirrors, and shampoo stations that looked cleaner than surgery rooms. Vanessa Price Studio, she said one evening, tapping the screen with one perfect nail. Not some little strip mall spot, a real studio, a place women come to feel expensive. Darnell laughed, but it came out thin. You got expensive taste. No, she said, looking straight at him. I have vision. That was Vanessa's gift. She could make greed sound like destiny. She never said Blue Palms embarrassed her. She only refused to sit where customers could see her too long. She never called his business small. She just talked about bigger things until he felt ashamed for standing where he stood. I met her twice before everything fell apart. The first time she smiled at me like a woman measuring curtains in a house she did not own. Mrs. Caldwell, she said, offering a soft hand. Darnell talks about you. I looked at my son. Does he? Vanessa's smile did not move. He says you're very strong. Strong. That is what people call you when they want to make your boundaries sound like a disease. Darnell watched her watching me. I could see it happening. He wanted to be taller in her eyes, richer, freer, the kind of man who did not have to ask his mother for anything. But debt had already wrapped itself around his throat. And Vanessa, with her mood boards and velvet chairs, only tightened the knot by making him believe that love was waiting on the other side of money. Darnell arrived with a pecan pie from Publix, still in the plastic shell. That alone told me he wanted something. My son had never once brought dessert to my house without expecting the conversation to end with my checkbook open. He kissed my cheek, called me Mama twice before he even sat down, and said the place smelled like Sunday. It was Saturday. I poured iced tea and waited. He did not start right away. Men who come asking for money like to circle the room first. He asked about my knee. He noticed the new curtain rods. He told me Talia had made honor roll, which I already knew because that baby called me herself, squealing so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Then Darnell leaned forward. Mama, I got a real opportunity. And there it was. He talked about Vanessa's salon like it had already been blessed by heaven. A beautiful space near Winter Park, good parking, high-income clients, women who would pay $200 for a silk press and leave tips big enough to make a man believe in miracles. All we need, he said, is the seed money. I asked how much. He swallowed. $88,000. I did not laugh. That would have been cruel. For chairs, build-out, licensing, insurance, first and last month's rent, he said quickly, and some branding. Branding, I repeated. His face tightened. I asked for a written business plan. He had none. I asked whether Vanessa had signed a lease. Not yet. I asked what liability coverage would cost. He said they were looking into it. I asked how Blue Palms was doing. He looked at my kitchen window as if the answer might be outside. Mama, don't do that. Do what? Make me feel small. I set my glass down. Darnell, numbers are not insults. He pushed back from the table. You never believed in me, not one time. That old accusation came out polished from use. I reminded him of the vendor bill I had covered the year before. I reminded him of the shut-off notice I had paid when he said the laundry machines would stop running. I reminded him, softly, of the rented black Mercedes and Vanessa's photo shoot. His eyes flashed. You went spying on me? A woman from church showed me a picture you posted publicly. Well, that was marketing. No, that was my money pretending to be your success. The kitchen went still. Outside, a lawnmower hummed 2 houses down. Somewhere in the hall, my wall clock clicked like it was counting how long a mother could keep her voice steady. He leaned over the table. So you'll help Micah with anything, but I gotta bring you a dissertation? Well, Micah has never asked me to put my home at risk. I'm your firstborn, and I am not your bank. His mouth opened, then closed. For 1 second, I saw the boy he used to be, angry because I would not buy sneakers we could not afford. Then that boy disappeared, and a grown man looked at me like I had stolen something from him. I said, I love you, Darnell, but I will not finance a lie just because you call it a dream. And he stood so fast the chair scraped the floor. You are a cold woman, he said. I did not answer. A cold woman would not have kept his report cards in a cedar box. A cold woman would not have prayed over his name when he stopped praying for himself. A cold woman would not feel her chest crack while her son tried to turn love into collateral. At the door, he looked back once, not hurt, not ashamed, owed. And that frightened me more than his anger. Vanessa lived in an apartment complex with a gate that worked only when it felt like it. Darnell sat in her kitchen with my refusal still burning in his face. He had left the pie on my counter, like evidence of how reasonable he had tried to be. Vanessa stood barefoot near the island, scrolling through pictures of salon chairs the color of champagne. Her nails were fresh, square-tipped, pale pink. The kind of detail a man notices because silence leaves too much room. She said no? Vanessa asked. Darnell looked down. She said she loves me, but she won't finance a lie. Vanessa laughed once, not loud, worse than loud. A lie? Well, she thinks Blue Palms is drowning. Well, is it? He did not answer. Vanessa set the phone down. Your mother has a paid-down house, a pension, insurance, and money-collecting dust. But you, her son, are supposed to beg lenders like a fool? Well, she says I don't have a plan. No, Vanessa said. She doesn't want you to have one. That was how she worked. She took a fact and dressed it in poison until it looked like truth. Darnell rubbed both hands over his face. You don't know, Mama. Well, I know women like her, Vanessa said. They call it discipline because control sounds ugly. He wanted to disagree. Somewhere under all that pride, a small, honest piece of my son still knew who had kept food in his mouth and a roof over his head. But Vanessa did not speak to that piece. She spoke to the part of him that felt cheated. A man who loves a woman finds a way, she said. Darnell looked up. There it was, the hook in velvet. I'm trying. Now, trying does not open a studio. Trying does not put my name on a door. Trying does not make people respect you." His jaw shifted. "So what do you want me to do?" Vanessa touched his shoulder, softly, like mercy. "I want you to stop asking permission from a woman who already lived her life." Darnell stared at the floor. Later, Micah would find searches on Darnell's phone about probate, beneficiaries, insurance payouts, and whether a policy could be challenged after a recent beneficiary change. But that night, in that kitchen, it probably began as a sentence he did not want to say out loud. "Mama still has that old policy," he murmured. "Years ago, she had me listed." Vanessa's hand froze only for a second. Then she stepped back. "Don't tell me details," she said. "I don't need details. I just need to know you can handle your life." That was the evil of Vanessa Price. She could stand close enough to light the match, then swear she never touched the fire. Darnell mistook her greed for belief. He mistook my refusal for betrayal and her hunger for love. By midnight, he had stopped calling my decision unfair. He had started calling it an obstacle. Darnell came back 3 days later with a manila folder under his arm. No pie this time. No sweet talk about how good my kitchen smelled. He wore a button-down shirt and the careful face of a man trying not to look desperate. "Mama," he said, "I've been thinking." That sentence had cost me money before. I let him in anyway. We sat at the kitchen table where I had helped him with spelling words, permission slips, and college forms he later claimed he filled out alone. He placed the folder between us like it was a peace treaty. "This is just estate planning," he said. "You know, so me and Micah don't have to fight if something happens." "If something happens to what?" "To you." He said it too quickly. I looked at him over my glasses. "I am sitting right here, Darnell." "I know that, Mama. Don't make it dramatic." That was a trick Ray had used for years. Say something cruel, then accuse the other person of making a scene by hearing it clearly. I opened the folder. The first few pages looked ordinary enough. Medical contact information, emergency numbers, a form listing household accounts. Then I reached the document with the heavy title across the top, Durable Financial Power of Attorney. I had spent too many years in hospital administration to fear legal language. Paper is only intimidating when you let it rush you. So I read slowly. Darnell watched my pen move under each line. At first, it sounded practical. If I became unable to manage my affairs, someone could help pay bills, talk to banks, handle insurance. Then I found the phrase, if the principal becomes unwilling, unavailable, or otherwise not convenient to personally manage financial matters. Not unable, not incapacitated, not certified by a doctor, not convenient. That one word sat there smiling like a snake in Sunday shoes. I turned the page. The agent named was Darnell Caldwell, not Micah, not both sons jointly, just Darnell. The powers were broad: banking, checks, real estate, insurance, retirement accounts, personal property, safe deposit boxes, everything but the air in my lungs. Who prepared this, I asked. A friend? What friend? Somebody who knows forms. But forms know how to steal, too. His face hardened. Mama, I'm trying to help. No, I said, tapping the page. You are trying to get authority without accountability. He leaned back, wounded on command. See? This is what I mean. You don't trust me with anything. Trust is not a birthright. I'm your son, and I am not dead. Silence dropped between us. Outside, a mockingbird kept singing like it had no respect for family disaster. Darnell pushed the pen toward me. Just sign it now. We can fix details later. I looked at the pen, then at the hand that offered it. That hand had once fit inside mine, crossing a parking lot. That same hand now wanted access to my accounts, my house, my insurance, and my name. I closed the folder. A person who does not intend to take anything, I said, is never afraid of a mother reading carefully. His mouth twitched. For a second I thought he might shout. Instead he smiled, and that frightened me more. Anger tells the truth too fast. A smile can hide long enough to plan. Fine, he said. Keep thinking everybody's against you. I stood and walked him to the door. He did not kiss my cheek. He did not call me Mama on the porch. He only looked past me into the house, like he was measuring what would one day be his. When his car pulled away, I locked the door, then checked it twice. The folder stayed on my kitchen table, closed, but not harmless. Some papers do not need a signature to announce a war. The letter came from a bank in Tampa I had never used. I thought it was junk mail. Retired women get enough pre-approved foolishness to wallpaper a hallway. But this one had my full name, my last 4 digits, and a sentence that turned my stomach. We are unable to approve your application at this time. Application? I called Micah before supper. He arrived with his laptop and a rotisserie chicken. At my table, he opened 3 credit bureau sites and asked questions only a son should ask gently. Former address, employer, mortgage, security code. Then his eyes stopped moving. What is it? He turned the screen toward me. A hard inquiry from a card issuer I did not recognize, dated 4 days after Darnell brought those papers to my kitchen. Beneath it sat an application with an email close to mine, but not mine. 1 extra dot, 1 small lie wearing my name. A mother's heart can cross many bridges. My son disappointed me. My son used me. My son lied. But there is a river between that and my son stole my identity. Micah's voice stayed low. Mama, we need to freeze your credit tonight. Don't say his name. Well, I don't have to. And that hurt worse. We froze all 3 reports. Micah changed my banking passwords, turned on 2-factor authentication, and removed a recovery email. Every click sounded like a lock sliding into place. The next morning, we saw Janice Whitaker. Her office smelled like coffee, lemon polish, and women who had learned not to apologize for being right. Janice was 57, silver at the temples, glasses on a chain. She read the bank letter, the credit report, and Darnell's power of attorney. She did not gasp. Professionals save drama for amateurs. Finally, she folded her hands. Miss Caldwell, she said, hope is a virtue in church. In legal papers, hope is a hole. Micah leaned forward. What do we do? Well, we close holes. She made a list. New will, beneficiaries, healthcare surrogate, revocable living trust, written revocation of any authority Darnell might claim, property record alerts in case anyone tried to touch my home, my house, my name, my life. All things I had built quietly while men called me difficult. If you are listening, please leave a like and a comment and tell me what advice you would give a mother standing where I stood. Stay with me, because the worst betrayal had not shown its face yet, and the question was no longer whether my son wanted my money, but how far he would go to get it. That evening, I placed Janice's folder beside my birth certificate and insurance papers. Then I locked the drawer. For the first time, locking something away from my own child felt less like fear and more like wisdom. Ray did not call me often after the divorce. When he did, he wanted something small enough to pretend it was not a favor. An old tax form, Micah's address, the plumber I trusted. Ray liked borrowing usefulness from the woman he had called too serious. That Tuesday evening he called while I was at Mount Olive packing canned goods for the pantry-drive. My phone was in my purse, turned low for the prayer circle. I saw the missed call later, but fatigue made me careless. I thought, Ray can wait until morning. Some mistakes do not look like mistakes when you make them. I did not know Darnell had visited his father that afternoon. Ray was on his back porch in Ocoee, drinking beer from the bottle, with an old Temptations record crackling through a speaker. Sabrina was inside making baked chicken and rice. The house smelled of garlic and the cheap vanilla candle Ray called good enough for anybody. Darnell arrived wearing sunglasses, though the sun had started dropping. Ray teased him. "Look at you, Mr. Big Business." Darnell smiled, but the smile had no boy left in it. They talked about blue palms first, machines, rent, customers. Then Darnell's question shifted. "How long does probate really take?" Ray laughed. "Depends who left a mess." "What about life insurance? If somebody is listed, does it pay fast?" Ray lowered his bottle. "Why are you asking me that?" "I'm just learning grown folks' business." "Grown folks' business can get ugly." Darnell did not blink. "If a beneficiary gets changed right before somebody dies, can people fight it?" That question crossed a line even Ray could see. My ex-husband had ignored red flags his whole life when they waved in his direction. But hearing death and payout from his son's mouth made something selfish in him turn sober. "Boy," Ray said, "who you planning on losing?" Darnell stood. "Forget I asked." Ray watched him leave through the screen door, the same door Darnell had run through as a child. Only this time, Ray did not see a son chasing freedom. He saw a man counting exits. That night, Ray called me again. I still did not answer. His voicemail waited in my phone like a hand knocking from underwater. "Etta," he said, voice low, stripped of all his showman music. "Call me back. Darnell's asking questions he shouldn't. Insurance, wills, all that. I don't know what Vanessa got in his head, but something's wrong. And before you say I'm being dramatic, I know what I heard." There was a pause, then softer. "You were right to be careful." Rayford Caldwell had wasted 28 years before saying that sentence. By the time I heard it, the words were already standing beside a grave. I learned about the bottle later from receipts, camera stills, and a clerk who remembered Darnell because he corrected the engraving. The shop sat near Winter Park, selling wedding flutes, cutting boards, and liquor bottles dressed up like forgiveness. Darnell walked in wearing his church face, respectful, quiet. The clerk said he seemed nervous, but not grief nervous, more like a man rehearsing politeness. He picked a limited edition whiskey in a black box with silver lettering. It cost $130. Foolish money for a man behind on rent. But Darnell knew how to spend big when the audience mattered. The engraving was simple. To Mama, with love, Darnell. The clerk asked if it was for Mother's Day. Darnell smiled and said, "Trying to make things right." Well, those words would have melted me once. That is the cruelty of a good lie. It knows the door where love used to enter. He chose whiskey because years ago, when Ray and I were still pretending our marriage could be patched with music and holiday cooking, I had taken one small glass with my husband on Christmas Eve. Darnell carried that memory like proof that he knew me. But I had not touched liquor in years. After my knee surgery and that fainting spell, I started listening to my body and to God. I drank sweet tea, lemon water, coffee when my nerves allowed it. At church dinners, if someone offered wine, I said, "My spirit is lively enough." A son planning to use his mother's habits should at least know her habits. The first delivery address was Blue Palms Laundry. Packages arrived there all the time, and nobody questioned boxes near the back office. 2 days later, he changed the final delivery to my house. Not a mistake, a step. When investigators showed me the timestamp, I sat still so my hands would not shake. There is a strange pain in seeing evil organized. Anger can be sudden. Weakness can be sudden. But this had calendar space inside it. Vanessa saw the receipt on his phone. She did not ask what was in the box. She did not ask why a man drowning in debt had bought engraved whiskey for a mother he had called cold. She only said, "Is it handled?" Darnell answered, "Before summer, everything changes." I wonder if he imagined the salon then. Vanessa's name shining on glass, cream walls, gold mirrors, women laughing under warm lights while my death paid the lease. Maybe he pictured himself in a suit, no longer the tired man behind broken dryers. Maybe he never pictured me at all. That was the deepest insult. My son did not hate me as a full person. He hated the locked door between him and what he wanted. So he bought a key shaped like a Mother's Day gift, and he had my name engraved on it. That Thursday, Mount Olive smelled like canned peaches, boxes, and floor cleaner. We were filling pantry bags because a storm had cut several hourly workers' shifts. Pastor Brooks joked that I stacked green beans like I was filing records. I laughed because I was still innocent enough to enjoy an ordinary afternoon. Across town, Darnell pulled into my driveway. Mrs. Betty Lawson saw him from her porch. Betty was 70 and sharp-eyed. "Darnell, your mama expecting you?" He smiled like any good son would. "Yes, ma'am. She said the outside faucet acting up. I'm just checking it before it turns into something." In Florida, a small leak can become a water bill that makes a grown woman sit down. Betty waved him on, probably thinking I had raised a helpful boy. He used the emergency key I had given him years earlier, back when trust was not something I knew to ration. Inside, he did not touch the faucet. He went to the small desk off my hallway where my old laptop sat under a quilted cover. It was slow, stubborn, and mostly used for church minutes and recipes. Darnell changed that. He typed words meant to curdle when police found them. Not enough to look like research from a mastermind, just enough to make me look like a bitter old woman circling bad thoughts. Then he opened an email account I barely used. He created drafts I never sent, sentences shaped to sound like me, but without my soul in them. Lines about Sabrina. Lines about Ray. Lines a stranger might read and call motive. He knew my grammar, but he did not know my heart. In a garage, behind a bin of Christmas wreaths, he tucked a small trash bag. Gloves, tissue, packaging scraps. A little stage dressing for a crime I had not committed. He did not make the evidence perfect. Perfect would invite doubt. Messy looks human. Messy looks panicked. Before leaving, he walked outside and jiggled the faucet handle, just in case Betty was still watching. She was. "Need a plumber?" she called. "Nah," he said. "Caught it early." That was the only true thing he said all day. He had caught something early. My passwords, my routines, my habit of leaving old doors unlocked because I still believed family entered a home to protect it. When I returned from church, the house looked exactly as I had left it. That is what cruelty understands better than anger. If nothing appears broken, a woman will set down her purse, wash her hands, and thank God for a quiet evening. I passed the hallway desk without looking. I walked by the garage door without opening it. My son had been inside my home for nearly 40 minutes, and every minute he spent there was waiting for me in the future. The package was waiting on my porch after early service, a black box, heavy and elegant, with a silver ribbon tied so neatly I knew a store clerk had done it. My name was printed on the card, Mrs. Etta Caldwell. Not Mama, not Ma. Formal enough to be safe, tender enough to be dangerous. Inside was the whiskey bottle. The glass caught the morning light and threw it across my kitchen wall. On the front, engraved in clean letters, were words I stood there reading longer than I should have. To Mama, with love, Darnell. A letter lay beneath the bottle. His handwriting leaned hard to the right like it always had, even in 3rd grade. He wrote that we had both said things we did not mean. He wrote that he wanted peace. He wrote that no matter what had happened between us, I was still his mother. I sat down before my knees asked me to. There are apologies a mother waits for so long that even a counterfeit one can make her hands tremble. I wanted to call him. I wanted to hear his voice soften and say, "Happy Mother's Day, Mama." I wanted for one foolish minute to believe God had moved something in my son that I could not move myself. But the bottle sat there, too perfect. Darnell did not buy engraved whiskey. Darnell did not spend money on sentiment unless sentiment had a receipt he could use later. And whiskey? I had not drunk whiskey in years. Still, I did not throw it away. That is another thing people judge too easily. A mother does not discard hope like spoiled milk. She sets it on the counter and keeps walking past it, waiting to see whether it is real. By late afternoon, the house felt crowded by that bottle. I thought about Sabrina. 2 weeks earlier, I had run into her at the Winter Garden Village Mall outside a department store. We spoke awkwardly at first, 2 women tied to the same man by different seasons of disappointment. Then she told me Ray's blood pressure was acting up, and I told her which clinic still had decent nurses. Before we parted, she said, "Ray still thinks he's 25 when somebody pours him whiskey." And it had made me laugh despite myself. So on Mother's Day, with that black box sitting in my kitchen like a question I did not want to answer, I chose the one thing I could live with. I drove to Ray and Sabrina's house. Sabrina opened the door wearing house slippers and surprise. "Miss Caldwell?" "I won't keep you," I said. "Darnell sent this to me. I don't drink anymore." And Ray might appreciate it. Her eyes moved to the engraving. I handed her the letter, too. "Maybe he meant peace," I said. "Let it be used for peace." Sabrina held the box carefully, as if it might break. "That's kind of you, Etta." It was the first time she had called me by my name without flinching. I did not hug her. We were not that kind of women yet. But I nodded, stepped back from the porch, and walked to my car with my conscience clean. That evening, the Florida sky turned pink over the rooftops. I remember thinking it was a gentle color for a day that had asked too much of me. I drove home, not knowing I had just carried a trap from my kitchen to another woman's table. Sabrina told me later the house smelled like pot roast, collard greens, and cornbread. That detail stayed with me. Death should not arrive in a kitchen that smells like somebody tried to make a decent meal. Ray was sitting at the table, watching an old basketball game with the volume low. Sabrina set the black box down like a small surprise. "Etta brought this by," she said. Ray looked over. "Etta?" "She said Darnell sent it to her. She doesn't drink anymore." At the sound of Darnell's name, Ray stopped smiling. Sabrina noticed. Wives notice the shift before the words come. "What?" she asked. Ray took the letter from the box. His eyes moved over Darnell's handwriting, then the engraving on the bottle. "To Mama. With love, Darnell." Sabrina said he went quiet in a way she had never seen before. Rayford Caldwell was many things, but quiet was not one of them. Even his guilt had noise. He reached for his phone, then stopped. "I need to call Etta," he said. "Now?" "After we eat." That was Ray. Even fear had to wait until supper. Sabrina poured 2 small glasses. "Not much," she said, just enough to be polite to the moment. The whiskey glowed amber under the kitchen light, pretty as sin usually tries to be. Ray lifted his glass, but did not drink right away. "Darnell been actin' strange," he muttered. Sabrina turned from the stove. "Strange how?" Ray shook his head. "Questions. Money questions." "What kind of money questions?" He finally took a sip. "The kind a son shouldn't ask unless somebody's already dead in his mind." Sabrina said that sentence made her hands go cold. She asked him to explain, but Ray waved toward the plates. "Let me eat first, then I'm calling Etta." They never got to that call. About 55 minutes later, Sabrina felt pressure under her ribs, then heat in her throat. She stood to get water, and the room tilted. "Ray," she said. He was halfway out of his chair, reaching for the counter where his phone lay charging. His face had gone gray. The glass slipped from his hand and broke on the tile. Sabrina tried to move toward him, but her legs folded. She hit the floor hard enough to bruise her hip. Across from her, Ray made a sound she said she still heard in dreams. Not a word, not a cry, just a man realizing his body had betrayed him. The phone was 6 feet away. 6 feet can become a mile when breath turns against you. Sabrina crawled. Her nails scraped tile. Her chest burned. She knocked the phone down by the cord and pressed numbers with fingers that would not obey. 911, what is your emergency? She tried to say poison. She tried to say Ray. She tried to say my name. What came out was broken air. By the time paramedics arrived, Ray was on the kitchen floor beside the chair he had almost escaped. Sabrina was alive, barely, and the bottle with my name attached to it sat open on the table, shining under the light like it had never done anything wrong. Detective Ortiz arrived before I finished my coffee. Mrs. Caldwell, she said, we need to ask about a bottle of whiskey. I told her the truth. Darnell sent it. I did not drink. I brought it to Sabrina because Ray might use it. I left the letter with the box and went home. The truth should have stood straight. Instead, it limped. She asked how long the bottle stayed in my house, who touched it, whether Ray and I had argued, whether anyone could prove I had not opened it. By noon, they had a warrant. I watched gloved hands move through my drawers and my clean little life. They took my old laptop and opened file folders I had labeled in blue ink. In the garage, Detective Ortiz found a small trash bag near the Christmas bins. "What is that?" I asked. She did not answer. That silence told me the bag had begun speaking against me. At the station, they showed me pages from my own computer. Search history I had never typed. Draft emails I had never written. Bitter lines about Sabrina. Ugly lines about Ray. "That is not mine," I said. "Ma'am, the device was in your home. My son had a key." "Which son?" When I said Darnell's name, the room cooled. Outside the interview room, he waited in a charcoal suit, red-eyed, hands folded, as if grief had taught him manners. "Mother," he said. "Not Mama, Mother." That one word put distance between us for every officer listening. "I don't understand why you gave Dad that bottle," he said. "It was supposed to be between us." I saw the costume fit too well. Micah arrived with Janice, but grief had already become evidence. Sabrina said I brought the bottle. My computer claimed I hated her. The garage supplied props. Church gossip supplied motive. By Sunday, Detective Ortiz came to Mount Olive. They waited until service ended. There is no respectful way to handcuff a woman in front of the choir that sang over her mother's casket. Pastor Brooks stepped forward. "Detective, surely this can be handled elsewhere." But the cuffs still closed. Micah shouted my name. Talia cried like a child who had just learned adults could be taken away. Darnell stood near the patrol car, face folded into sorrow. Then I heard him ask Detective Ortiz one question. "Did Daddy say anything before he died?" Not, "Is Sabrina going to live?" Not, "What happens to Mama?" Daddy said anything. Micah heard it too. I saw his head turn. As they guided me into the car, the people who once saved me a seat now held their mouths like I had brought death into the sanctuary. The door shut. For the first time, I understood how fast a good name can be dragged through mud by hands that knew where I kept the towels. Micah told me later he did not sleep that night. He sat at his dining table with coffee gone cold, my arrest on every local whisper, and Talia asleep on the couch under one of his old college blankets. Every time she stirred, he looked over like the world might take her too. Janice arrived before sunrise, with her hair pinned tight and a legal pad under her arm. "Grief can wait," she told him. "Evidence cannot." And that was how they began, not with speeches, with clocks. The search history on my old laptop showed activity Thursday at 3:18 p.m. Janice asked where I was. Micah called Pastor Brooks. Within an hour, they had the church live stream from the pantry-drive. There I was on camera in a yellow cardigan, stacking canned peaches and laughing at something Deacon Morris said. At 3:18 p.m., I was not at my desk. I was at Mount Olive, holding a box of green beans. Janice circled the timestamp in red. "First stitch," she said. Then Micah checked neighborhood cameras. Mrs. Lawson's doorbell camera did not show my front door, but it caught the street. At 3:02 p.m., Darnell's silver SUV rolled past her crepe myrtle. At 3:41, it rolled back the other way. When Micah showed her the clip, Betty Lawson pressed a hand to her chest. "He told me he was fixing your mama's faucet." "Well, did you see tools?" She blinked. "No, baby, I saw no tools." Second stitch. The email drafts came next. Janice subpoenaed login records through the proper channels after Detective Ortiz agreed to review the new material. The account had been accessed from an IP address tied to Blue Palm's laundry. Darnell's place, not my house. Third stitch. Micah did not stop. He took the strange credit inquiry Janice had saved and compared the device information with a login alert from Darnell's business banking app. Different accounts, same device fingerprint. That was when Janice went quiet. There is a kind of silence lawyers keep when outrage has to wait its turn behind strategy. She prepared a packet for Detective Ortiz. Not a plea, not a mother's defense, a map. At the station, Ortiz listened with her arms crossed until Janice laid down the church video, the doorbell footage, the IP logs, the credit inquiry, and Mrs. Lawson's statement. For the first time, the detective did not look at me like a woman explaining away murder. She looked at me like a case changing shape. They released me that evening. No apology came with the paperwork. Freedom, I learned, can be handed back without the dignity that was stolen with it. Micah drove me home. Neither of us spoke much. Outside my house, Mrs. Lawson stood on her porch, crying into a tissue. "I'm sorry, Etta," she called. I nodded because forgiveness was too heavy to lift right then. Inside, my kitchen looked the same, but I did not. My Bible sat on the counter. My tea glass waited in the sink. The chair Darnell had once dragged across my floor was tucked neatly under the table. Micah locked the back door, then the front. "Mama," he said, "we're going to get him." I looked at my youngest son and saw the man he had become while I was busy grieving the one I had lost. "No," I said softly. "We are going to tell the truth until it has nowhere left to hide." Sabrina changed everything from a hospital bed. Ray had gone pale before he drank, she told Detective Ortiz, because Darnell's name frightened him. Then she gave them a note from Ray's jacket. "Talk to Etta. Darnell desperate. Insurance." That scrap of paper made the dead man speak. After that, The walls closed fast. The gift shop produced the order. The payment touched Darnell's account. A camera showed him with a black box. The lab confirmed the bottle had been opened and sealed. Vanessa Price lasted less time than her perfume. When prosecutors showed her messages, she stopped playing queen and started bargaining. Your mother already lived her life. No more small life. Don't give me details. She swore she never told Darnell to kill anyone. Maybe that was true in the way cowards tell truth. She had only blessed the hunger behind it. At trial, Darnell wore the wounded face he had practiced on me for years. He said I never believed in him, never supported him. The prosecutor let him talk. Then came the papers, the church video, Mrs. Lawson's footage, the Blue Palms login, the whiskey receipt, Ray's note, and Vanessa's messages. One by one, the lies lost oxygen. Sabrina testified with shaking hands. I blamed Mrs. Caldwell because I was scared, she said. But fear is not truth. Micah gave the timeline, clean and steady. When it was my turn, I looked at Darnell and found only a grown man waiting for motherhood to rescue him from consequence. My son did not get lost, I said. He chose his road, and I will not let love be used as a weapon against me. The jury came back guilty. Darnell's knees weakened before the sentence did. Vanessa got probation, restitution, shame, and a name no salon owner wanted near a lease. Her studio never opened. Afterward, I did not celebrate. I went home with Janice and changed my will, insurance, accounts, and Talia's protection. Micah became trustee until that child was grown. Darnell was removed from every door, signature, and benefit. My revenge was notarized. Weeks later, Sabrina sat at my table with Micah and Talia. We ate baked chicken, sweet potatoes, and green beans. There was no whiskey in my home. Talia asked, Nana, are we still a family? I took her hand. Family is not just blood, baby. Family is who refuses to turn love into a weapon. But life taught me this. Forgiveness may heal the heart, but boundaries protect the life God still expects you to live. If this story touched you, please leave a like for the channel. If you have thoughts, leave a comment below and tell us where you are listening from. Thank you for staying until the end. I wish you health, peace, and a steady heart. See you again in the next story on Voices of Aunt Etta.